making Bouillabaisse de Poulet from Mastering the Art of French Cooking by Julia Child. Most people, when they hear the word bouillabaisse, if you know what it is, you associate it with seafood. But I've got many coworkers and friends who are allergic to seafood, but they still would like to get this really wonderful, flavorful bouillabaisse broth. So she has a recipe for the chicken version of it, which may be more palatable to a wider audience if you're cooking a fancy meal for your family. This is one of those French stews that kind of has a lot of steps and a fair amount of ingredients to it, but it is well worth it to give it a shot. It's got this fresh medley of vegetables, almost like a ratatouille, in conjunction with some classic French herbs and spices. It's from southern France, so it also incorporates a little bit of that Spanish saffron and a little bit of chili pepper kick to it. So try this out. I think you're going to like it. Follow along, and I'm going to show you how to make it. To get started making our bouillabaisse, you want to get a Dutch oven or a heavy-bottomed casserole, and we're going to put in the sliced whites of 1 leek, as well as about half a cup of onion over medium heat. And we're going to let this cook until it softens for about 10 minutes. With the onions and leeks starting to soften, we're now going to add a cup and a half of strained tomato pulp. I'm using Italian tomatoes from a can because they serve the purpose of a bouillabaisse really well. And we're going to just go ahead and mix those in. And now we're going to cook this covered for 5 more minutes. The tomatoes are starting to release the juices that they had inside. And at this point, we're going to put in 2 minced garlic cloves. And we're going to let this cook and allow the tomato juices and onion juices to evaporate until we almost end up with a dry stew. Once we get to this point where the oil is starting to separate, it's almost starting to look like ratatouille, right? We're going to kind of make a little bit of a well here. And we've got some lightly salted bone-in chicken. And we're going to place that in the pan. And we're actually going to kind of spoon the vegetables over the top of it after we get it in. And we're going to cook it on each side for about 5 minutes. So we're going to turn this once after we get the chicken in. I like to use chicken quarters of the leg and the thigh because they're the most flavorful pieces of chicken. And they kind of hold up well in these kind of stews. Whereas, sometimes chicken breast can be a little bit dry. So we're going to go ahead and get that in there. And we're going to go ahead and spread this around. And like I said, we're going to cook this for 5 minutes covered, and then we're going to turn it once and cook it for 5 minutes more. I just turned the chicken. You can see it's browned a little bit. That's okay, because we're going to be cooking this for a lot longer. So 5 more minutes covered after the flip, and I'll see you at the other side. This is already starting to smell incredible, but we're going to go ahead and build up the soup base as well as season it. So to begin, we're going to put about a cup and a half of white wine. As well as 2 cups of chicken broth. Now, for our seasonings, we're going to put in a bay leaf, which obviously is a very French ingredient. This is a half a teaspoon of thyme, as well as a 1/4 teaspoon of crushed fennel seed. Fennel, it doesn't take a lot to really impart the flavor, but if you don't cook a lot with it, it is one of the best seasonings out there. Especially for wonderful stews like this. Now we're going to put just a pinch of black pepper. We're going to put a couple of pinches of saffron threads. And that's really going to impart a yellow color into this broth, as well as just a part of one of almost like saffron is closely associated with Spanish food, but it's wonderful in these types of stews from the south of France as well. Another bit of seasoning we're going to add is a fresh orange peel or a dried orange peel if you don't have a fresh one. This is actually a piece of orange peel directly from a blood orange tree in my backyard. So we're going to get that in there, and that's going to impart a wonderful citrus flavor into this broth as well. And the last thing we're going to put in as far as seasoning is just a tiny pinch of cayenne pepper. Now, we're going to put one more thing in here. It's not really for the stew, though. This is just a peeled potato. We're going to cook it in the broth, but we're actually going to use it for something else later that I'll get to. And once we get everything in there, let's go ahead and get this all mixed up. And get everything submerged. If you can't get everything submerged in the broth, definitely just add some water or some more chicken broth until you get everything covered. And then we're going to get this to a bubbling simmer, and we're going to cook this covered for 25 minutes. I just opened the pot, and we're going to let this cool down for a little while we do a couple other things. The first thing we're going to do is fish out the bay leaf and the orange peel, and we're also going to skim off all of this fat from the broth and just go ahead and discard that. We're also going to make a rouille sauce, which is either a rouille or a pistou. In this case, we're doing a rouille. I'm going to show you what that is, but we're going to make that, and it's a finishing garnish that goes on the individual plates when you make this dish. To make our rouille sauce, we're going to take a small jar of pimientos or roasted red peppers, about a quarter of a cup's worth. And to that, we're going to add the potato that we used earlier, cooked in the broth. You can see it's absorbed a lot of that color. We're going to put just a small splash of hot sauce. We're going to put in 4 cloves of garlic, and we're going to put in a teaspoon of, the recipe says a mixture of thyme, basil, so I'm using a French herbes de Provence mix, so just a teaspoon of mixed herbs. Any herbs are fine as long as they are of something that would go in French cuisine. Summer savory is a good choice as well. And now we're just going to use our mortar and pestle, and we're going to grind all of this up into a paste. Once you get a nice thick peppery sauce like this, we're going to put in just a pinch of salt and pepper. You don't need a lot because this is not a large volume of liquid. Now I've got 4 tablespoons of olive oil, and we're just going to put in a bit at a time, and then we're going to continue to incorporate that using the mortar and pestle, almost like incorporating into a mayonnaise. So once all of the oil has been incorporated into the sauce, then we'll go ahead and pour a little bit more until we've used it all. And finishing up our sauce, we're going to add a couple of tablespoons of the actual soup broth. And one more time, we're going to just incorporate all of that together and just work it with the mortar and pestle until you get a nice uniform sauce. We are ready to serve. So I've plated up one of our pieces of chicken, and now we're going to finish it with just a little bit of that Rouille sauce right across the top. And this is typically the way it's served, is this gets incorporated into the broth at the very end on individual plates. That's the way the bouillet or pistou, if you use that kind of sauce, is usually served in dishes like this. Now I'm just going to finish up by adding just a little bit of a green pop and flourish to this by incorporating a little bit of fresh parsley. And there we go. That is our Bouillabaisse de Poulet. This is just a fantastic French stew. A lot of their stews are really good. I encourage you to check it out. Definitely check out Julia Child's book. Her recipes are really good. And I'll see you guys at the next video.